Alright guys, BLM here back with a new video, and in this video we're back talking about Big Brother characters, back with another top 10, continuing off the series that I started with my pre-jury character video. This time we'll be doing my top 10 one-time character video, which obviously with Big Brother, with there being a lot less returnee seasons than the likes of Survivor, I do think there's actually a good chunk of really strong characters to be talking about here, where sadly a lot of them obviously didn't make the cut. Though coming into this process I was expecting some of the pre-jurors still really be in contention for this list, though by the end of it none of the pre-juror characters that were eligible were made on this list, where while there's a certain one that probably would have been on here, that person was also a two-time player. So because of that, again, no pre-jury characters here. If you want to see my thoughts on pre-jury characters, watch the pre-jury character video. But before we actually get to the top 10, let's obviously run through the honorable mentions, which we do have a lot of them. We'll be running through them in chronological order of when they first played, starting it off with Monica Bailey, who is obviously a really interesting character back in BB2. This very real, raw character for the show that was very open to getting confrontations, where, again, she was in contention, did not pick her. Also considered Amy Cruz, also another, again, unique character, one that would get into a lot of drama and would get drunk pretty often, where, again, I thought she was also a fun character, but did not make the cuts. Also, I considered Karen from BB5, who I do think is a bit of an understated character, one that does give pretty good confessionals, specifically in mocking the likes of Jace and Scott. Though outside that, again, she's pretty low drama, to where I didn't feel like her confessionals were good enough to make her to pick here. Also, I considered Yvette, who also was a really funny confessionalist. Also had some funny moments in the house. I would say in general, though, there's also some ickier stuff with Yvette that makes me not really want to pick her, where while technically there's some people that do icky stuff in the top 10, I do feel like Yvette not as good as those characters, where, and she's good, but not enough to be top 10. Also, I did not put on Jen Johnson, which was a surprise to me, where I came into this expecting her to make the top 10, though she ends up barely missing out on the cut, where obviously she has like really iconic moments from her fights with Dick, her being upset at her diary room photo. Again, it ended up being not enough to crack the top 10 here. Next for BB9, I did consider the winner of the season in Adam, who I think is actually probably understatedly one of the better character winners in the history of the show, where again, I thought he provided for some fun moments here and there, but again, not enough to be in the top 10. Same thing goes with Sheila, who was also a really dynamic personality, when again, got into a lot of conflicts, would just change her mind on things left and right. So again, considered her, but she did not make it on. Also, I considered Natalie, who is, and I did declare as my favorite character of BB9 back in my favorite character for every season video, and again, she was also very much contention here, though realistically, in comparison to the rest of the field, she wasn't as close to making the top 10 as some other people, where again, even Jen was higher than her, where again, not really that close. But also, I did consider Crazy James, who I thought was also an interesting character, good underdog run for him, along with the fact that he again got into confrontations, but again, did not end up picking him. Also, I did consider Joshua from BB9, who was again, definitely a more icky presence, where again, that's kind of the reason I didn't really end up picking him, is because I do feel like a lot of the entertainment that he brought was kind of based around him being a terrible human being, with again, his constant yelling at the likes of Amanda and Allison, and I thought he brought some entertainment, but I did not go with him. From BB10, I did consider Jerry, where again, Jerry's obviously a very humorous figure, and the fact that again, he was also open to getting in confrontations, all being a guy in his 70s, which is kind of humorous to see, like him yelling, "You're going home" to Libra, something that still lingers in my brain, but again, I did not end up going with him. Also, I considered April, who also, again, very confrontational figure, was a massive presence on this season, though he did not crack the top 10. Same thing goes with Libra, who was a bit closer making it on. I feel like Libra was the closest of these BB10 people, and not make it on to make my top 10, where, and obviously, again, she gets into a lot of confrontations. Her saying magna cum laude is still really iconic to me, but as a whole, again, sadly did not make the top 10. BB11, I did consider Natalie, where I did think Natalie is someone that brought some entertainment to the show. One, again, she was open to getting confrontations. Was also just like a very like petty person and would just like lie for no reason, where and those things made her kind of an interesting character, but I did not pick her. Also considered Lydia, who is also another person, again, very open to getting confrontations. Also was kind of playing from the bottom for a lot of it. Also, like, kind of was a scrappy player, to where, while not a good player, she was, again, at least willing to throw people under the bus whenever she needed to, where, again, I thought there was some intrigue that we had from Lydia, but I did not go with her. Also, I considered Shima, who obviously has an explosive exit from the game, but beyond that also has, like, this really great fight with Russell. That's probably one of my favorite Big Brother fights. Also, her calling out Brayden on the live show was also a great moment. So, again, I very much consider her, but she did not make it on. From BB12, 12, I did consider Lane, who is someone that I do think is an understated character at this point. I mean, Lane is someone that I don't think people talk about. I think he's probably the least remembered member of the brigade, yet despite that, I think he's probably the most entertaining one of the 4, at least on that specific season, where, again, I do think Lane is a really great confessionalist, one of the most underrated people in the DR, but I still didn't end up picking him. I did very much consider Matt Hoffman, who was very close to making the top 10, someone that, again, played this villainous role in a really interesting way on the show, and made up the lie about his wife being sick. He would also come up with these, like, weird plots about, like, nominating himself to gain sympathy, and put a target on Rachel and Brennan, which, again, like, the fact that he was able to make these, like, really crazy schemes and stuff is something that definitely kept him in contention, but I did not go with him. Also surprised to not see Johnny Mac on my list, which, by the way, also, skipping 13 through 16 is kind of funny here, but, again, Johnny Mac is someone that I loved at the time. I thought he was an incredible character. Like him saying no in the DR and Shelley and Clay wanting him to not use the veto on himself is really funny. Just obviously, just in general, he feels like a very dynamic personality. But again, at the end of the day, I just felt like there were others that probably do a bit more than Johnny Mac, where I feel like his stuff is more so relegated to the DR, though he really didn't do that much in the house itself, which I think made him a bit tougher to pick here. From BB-18, I did consider Big Meech, where I did think Big Meech is actually a really fun character, one that, and was also very petty and did not act the greatest in the house, but again, it led to interesting TV. So again, Bridget's eviction, where Michelle was like sobbing at the fact that Bridget's going home when she was on the block against her, is also really funny. Again, there's fun stuff there, but I did not go with her. Also considered Paulie Calafiore, who again, I thought had some humorous moments on BB-18. I mean, like he was saying, I decided to rattle her is something that still sticks to my mind, but at the end of the day, I just felt like it was a bit tough to squeeze him into the top 10. Also, I did consider Kevin Schluber from BB-19, where Kevin is someone that, again, had some funny one-liners. Mind you, again, another one that didn't really do much on the house, but again, in the confessional, he was kind of funny. I still remember his moment saying cock play when Ramsey said that he does cosplay, but again, at the end of the day, still not enough to make him the pick. Also, I did consider Raven, who is someone that, again, also a little bit surprised she didn't make the top 10, where Raven, again, was another one that was almost on. I mean, someone that, again, very confrontational. Her saying wolf, wolf, mother effing wolf is still really funny to me. While also, again, her having the memes of, like, her GPA is dance and all these stories she would make up is, again, humorous content, though, again, she still did not end up making the top 10. For BB-20, I did consider JC. Now, again, JC I thought was a very entertaining presence on the show. I thought he had really good confessionals, and you have his Yatus moment, but at the end of the day, again, also one that, again, there's some negativity there that made it a bit tough for him to squeeze into the top 10. From BB-21, I did consider Tommy Bracco, who I thought was a big, larger-than-life character, where I always remember him yelling, "They know each other," but at the end of the day, again, not enough to be top 10, and the same thing sadly goes with Christy Murphy, who I think is an even more insane character, where I still just love the moment of her crying and being paranoid that she's going home, so everyone else is consoling her. Man, that's a funny moment. And she also has like moments like Taco Tuesday and stuff to like for Christy. Again, I still didn't end up going with her by the end. From BB-23, I did consider Kylan, where Kylan as a whole is like kind of just a fine character, but obviously he has a very explosive exit that made him very much in contention, though I did not go with him. I also sadly not go with Tiffany Mitchell, and I really wanted to, and to be fair, I think there's definitely an argument that she would be on the list, considering I do think she is probably one of the best DR personalities, especially of modern years, to where she was pretty close to making it on. But the reason I did not really put her on here is because, again, I think there's kind of this lacking of a true character moment that sticks to my mind. Where, again, she has these really great DRs, but really for me, I think the most fun character moment from her that I remember is from Challenge USA, of her saying, "Shut the hell up, Dusty." Where outside of that, Tiffany's like character moments don't really spring to mind for me from Big Brother, so I did not go with her here. From BB-24, I did consider Jasmine, who, with that, I mean, you kind of consider Turner, though I think Jasmine, particularly as a character, is one that pops a bit more. Obviously, the entire Muffin situation, the fact that she gets injured and really hams up the injury is also funny. And I think there's stuff to like from Jasmine, but I did not go with her. From BB-25, I did consider Bowie Jane, literally just because she says, "How'd your game change for the better when you joined the mafia of Matt and I?" Really outside that, again, not much else from Bowie Jane. I'd also consider Sheree, considering Sheree is obviously just in general an all-time great character. Also seeing her now in Big Brother was fantastic. There was some fun stuff from Sheree, especially like the fact that she just didn't want to be there. Her, again, feigning excitement for Corey's birthday party is also really funny. Her also like scolding Jared at points. Again, there's some interesting stuff, but I still did not end up going with her here. I also did consider Cameron. Now, again, I don't like Cameron and how he acted on the show. However, again, as a character, especially in terms of how he's presented on the show, I do think he was a fun presence. Again, he was this big underdog figure that made these big splashy moves. Again, I think there's stuff to like there, though I did not go with him. And the last contender here from BB26, I did consider Quinn, where again, I thought Quinn had a really fun energy to where, while yes, I know a lot of people were upset how hammy it was, and it is definitely hammy, I did still feel like he was a very entertaining presence, one that brought a fun energy to the show, but again, he did not squeeze into the top 10. But with that, now we'll get into the actual top 10, starting it off with someone that's a bit icky, which, again, this was a bit tough. Again, I think this is a character that just really sticks out. When I think of greatest one-time characters, this is definitely one that does come to my mind, though I do think when you know the context of the season, and it definitely gets a bit weird, and there's definitely stuff about this character that doesn't age particularly well nowadays, but either way, at number 10, I do have Marvin from BB5, and again, Marvin is this character that, again, that really just feels like the epitome of old school Big Brother, this person who had these funny one-liners in the DR, felt like this very raw personality, to where I don't think he's hamming it up for anything. I think this is literally just who he is. He'll also call out people's shit, to where when people are lying to him, he would just tell them to their face that he knows that they're lying to him. And in general, Marvin is just a really insane character. I think when watching BB5, I did think you come out of that looking at Marvin as such an incredible character. The issues do come from the fact that, and some has not aged well. A lot of the objectification of women across seasons not great. Also, the fact that he got accused of harassment in the first week is also not great. To where, again, I think there's definitely stuff to not like from Marvin, though. I think when just looking at how he was presented on the show, I do think Marvin is a character that really just pops on BB5, to where I felt like it was tough to not squeeze him on the top 10, even though, again, I think there are definitely people that you can argue should be here. Again, people like a Jen Johnson, people like a Johnny Mac, a Raven, a Tiffany Mitchell, though I just felt like Marvin was the character that really popped for me. So again, put him here at number 10. Now number 9, moving on to someone that I did not actually think was going to make the top 10. This is actually a character that I liked. I mean, I thought they were a fun presence on their season, though. I thought some of the other characters I just mentioned would be higher, though somehow at number 9, I do have Brett from BB20. And Brett is a character that I think when you look at like Brett just as a natural personality, I don't know if he's enough to be in the top 10. I think he's a more mellow guy. Again, we saw this on The Circle where he was just kind of normal on The Circle. But on Big Brother, I do feel like he has some really landmark moments where I personally feel like his performance in Hide and Go Veto is probably one of the most entertaining challenges in the history of the show. Now just over the top he is in the DR throughout all of that. Also, the thing that really put him over the line for me is his involvement in the Rockstar's birthday moment, which, to be fair, I mean, you could definitely consider Rockstar as well, though I don't think Rockstar really has much else outside that to make her in the top 10. But I feel like Brett having that, along with the fact that, again, his speeches during those evictions were really great as well. So again, I think Brett brought a lot to the show, surprisingly, considering, again, he probably isn't the most riveting character on paper, but I do think when we're looking at the individual character moments, I think there's a lot here, which is the reason why he's here, number 9. Now, number 8, we're moving on to a character that this one's a little bit up in the air for me. I mean, this is a character that I thought was a fun presence on their season, but I do think a lot of their ego as a character really stems from their character arc, which, to be fair, that's not really what we're assessing here, or maybe I'll do that down the road of ranking character arcs, but this is more so about entertainment value, but I still feel like they were justified being in the top 10 here. At number 8, I do have Taylor Hale. Now, I will say, to preface this, obviously Taylor Hale did later come back in Reindeer Games, and I did debate a bit, should I include Reindeer Games or not, in terms of the one-time player assessment, and I did decide to leave Reindeer Games off, as, again, at the end of the day, this is purely just an assessment of Big Brother US, the mainline show, and this isn't including anything like Celebrity or OTT, so I think including Reindeer Games as, again, another season for you is a bit strange, and also, to be fair, it doesn't really change that much here. There's only 2 people that were on Reindeer Games that make the top 10 anyway. And I put Taylor Hale here, and I think Taylor is someone that had the potential to be a really fun character. Now, again, on her season, obviously, a lot of her story was based around her mistreatment from the others, and through that, it plays into her character arc, but I would say it didn't really give her much material to really work with as her as a character. Though I do think towards the end of the season, we do see more strong content from her really playing into this gamer side of her that we see more of on Reindeer Games. But again, we do see some of that on her original season. But even beyond that, again, we have her really gloating over Daniel going home. Her entire thing with her eating chips is kind of humorous, along with the fact that she gives probably the best speech in Big Brother history. I mean, just her individual line of saying that I am not a shield, I am a sword, I am not a victim, I am a victor is such a resonating moment to me where again, I literally get chills every single single time I watch that speech, to where, and I do feel like at the end of the day, it's like, is Taylor, again, as interesting of a raw personality as some of the people that did not make the list? Maybe not, but I do think Taylor brings a lot to the show still, and I do think if she were to come back, I think she would continue to bring a lot to the show. I think it would obviously be a different character than what we got in BB24, where again, I think it would be a lot more playing into probably this more villainous role of her being a more cutthroat style of player, but I still think there's a lot for her to bring to the show, or even in this spot where she wasn't really even able to bring all of her potential, I feel like she still ended up being an entertaining presence, where again, at the end of the day, I do have Taylor here at number 8. Now, number 7, another winner off the board, a winner that essentially is what Taylor Hale could have been. At number 7, we do have Jun Song. And again, Jun also really incredible character, one of the best people in the DR in the history of the show, where her ability to mock people in the DR is something that is nearly unprecedented. So again, she really fills into this like villainous role very well on the season. But again, was also someone that was still willing to get into confrontations. I will say the one thing I would knock against Jun is that I do feel like her trash talking did get icky at points, again, particularly in terms of how she would talk about Robert, which led to some outrage at the time, to where, again, I think that's maybe the one thing that you would criticize her for, but really at the end of the day, again, still one of the best confessionalists in the history of the show, and that really fits into her role on the show very well, where while there's not as many like individual character moments, at least she still ends up coming out of that season being one of the best narrators the show has ever had, which is why she's here at number 7. At number 6, we're actually starting a streak of 3 people in a row here that fit into a similar archetype of older women with massive personalities, and we're starting that off at number 10 with Renny from BB10. And Renny's someone that I actually initially thought was going to be higher. I mean, Renny is such an incredible character on BB10. Again, on a season with a lot of like really standout characters, she somehow is the one that pops the most. Again, her, being very confrontational, very willing to get into fights, her instantly having a feud with Jesse at the very beginning of week 1, her also then proceeding to have fights with the likes of Jerry, the likes of Michelle Costa, like her just saying, "You better not," is still something that really sticks in my head. And beyond that, also you have her fun moment of her not knowing how time works, where again, I think there's a lot to like from Renny. I think she is clearly a really standout character there, and I think for a while was the pretty definitive older woman character on Big Brother, though I think she's definitely got some competition with recent seasons, which is the reason why Renny ends up dropping a little bit from where I expected her to be, being here at number 6. Now at number 5, we're moving on to, again, someone that fulfills that archetype, but a lot more recent. Here from BB25, we have Felicia Cannon. And again, Felicia, incredible character on Big Brother 25. A similar personality, I will say probably Renny is a bit more confrontational, where I feel like Renny is more likely to get into fights. Ends up being probably more fun in the DR for me personally, where she has some pretty decent quips there. She also has some fun live feed moments that didn't make the show. Again, her constantly talking to Mr. B, her constantly requesting food is also really funny, but also, again, she's not unwilling to get into confrontations. Again, we obviously get some pretty big fights. I mean, some of the biggest fights of the season come from her fighting with Suri, her later fighting with Corey in America, to where, again, those are really great moments as well, where also makes the fact that, again, we do see her playing a lot more aggressively than someone like Renny, and I think that leads to some intrigue as well. Again, I do think Felicia does bring a lot to the show. Again, I think she has some really, really fun character moments across the season, to where, again, I debated is she better than Renny or not, to where I think by the end, I did end up coming out of BB25, looking at Felicia as a much more standout character in my mind than how I felt like after BB10 with Renny, to where, again, at the end of the day, it is close, but I still win with Felicia here at number 5. Now number 4. Now the new gold standard of older women on Big Brother, I guess. Again, from the most recent season, from BB26, we do have Angela. And again, Angela is kind of on another level. I feel like Angela's kind of like a mix of Renny and Felicia in terms of the type of personalities that there are. Now, I will say, I don't think Angela is still as confrontational as someone like Renny. I feel like Angela kind of diffuses arguments through her, again, just instantly crying and making the person stop from being upset at her almost instantly, to where, again, it kind of disarms them from even being able to yell at her. So because, again, we don't really see any like full out arguments with Angela, but she still is an incredible character outside that, and still provides drama, where obviously her entire reign during week 1 is just purely insane. I mean, her constant paranoia, her not believing alliances when people are approaching her with them, her proceeding to recite her speeches in the middle of the night, and obviously we get the big crazy eyes moment, which is obviously just one of the best character moments in the history of the show. Beyond that, we also have her like fight with with Kenny that week. We have her feud with Lisa, which was pretty insane. Now, again, it did delve into the ickiness of week 2, where that might be a little bit of a knock there, but one that still, again, ends up being an incredible character through, again, her hysterics at pretty much every little moment, her constant talk about how she's excited to be playing Big Frickin' Brother, and again, there's a lot to like there from Angela, with her having, again, a pretty deep run on the season, with, again, the humorous quirk of the veto being used on her over and over and over again, despite her not really doing anything to really cause that to happen, to where Angela essentially ends up being in line with a lot of these, like, all-time great pre-merge characters, but one that somehow actually made it towards the end of the game, and through that ends up obviously really expediting her placement on this list, to where I think at this point I would look at her as the best of her archetype, which is why she's here at number 4. Now number 3. At number 3, we're moving on to, and kind of the top tier of the list. Again, these top 3 are 3 people that, again, all one-time players, all really insane characters, get into a lot of confrontations, really fun presences on the show. At number 3, though, we're starting it off with a character from Big Brother 16 of all seasons. We do have Zach Rance. And Zach, again, was just such a fun presence at the time. I remember at the time, BB16, it really felt like he brought this breath of fresh air to the series, and that he was, again, this person who was obviously aware of the fact that he was on a TV show, but and was someone that was like kind of playing the game in such a chaotic way, where he was willing to call people out whenever he didn't agree with their plans. He would get into these confrontations, would plan these like big elaborate speeches, where, again, obviously we get one of the most iconic veto ceremonies in the history of the show, a lot of it stemming from how Zach reacts to Devin's backdoor of him, which is great there. Also, him having the Fruit Loot Dingus moment when nominating Nicole and Christine is also really funny as well. So he ends up being this really fun personality that it's kind of mind-blowing that he never ended up playing again, though obviously there are reasons for that. But again, I think he is like much in line with someone like a Tucker from B26, though, one that, again, makes it deeper into the game. Probably has more like individual character moments, which is why he makes this list over Tucker. But again, I do think there's a couple people we're about to be talking about that have a bit more of a splash in the grand scheme of things. And that's why Zach's left here at number 3. Now number 2. And this is a character that I've always loved. I love this character when I was a kid. I actually went and rewatched a supercut of this person's run on their season recently that has reminded me just how incredible this character is. At number 2, I do have Russell from BB11. And I debated number 1 here. So I think Russell is such an incredible character, really a character that it's a shame that we never really got to see him play again, because I think there's a lot of potential there. I mean, in his one appearance, he is, again, someone that is utilizing these very out-of-the-box strategies on how to move her through the game. Again, him openly trying to create conflict with people, to rattle them, to get them to make mistakes, him spreading lies to people to try to get them to dig themselves into a hole. And we see him, like, tell Brayden that Lydia threw him under the bus. Gotta get Brayden to piss off other people so that Brayden gets voted out. Again, that's a very innovative strategy, along the fact that, again, he also calls out Jeff, where we get the Technotronics moment, which is probably one of my all-time favorite fights, if you take out the Jeff being homophobic part of it. We're getting just Russell saying, "Who spelled it correctly?" is just so funny to me. Yeah, and again, he has his fight with Shima and all that craziness that goes on there, and them getting in each other's faces. You have him taunting Ronnie and just following Ronnie every second. Like, just the moment of Ronnie getting called to the DR, and we see Russell proceed to just get up instantly, and is, again, just insane behavior. Like, even in his eviction week, he's getting the fights left and right with Jeff and Jordan. Again, he gets Jordan to actually chest bump him, which is pretty insane. Where, again, there's a lot to like from Russell, especially when you add in the fact that he's also, like, again, a really interesting player. I do think at the end of the day, Russell is one that really sticks to my mind as really just an incredible character, an all-time great character, one that we might be seeing on the all-time character list. Though for this specific list of one-time players, he is number 2, and we're taking reindeer games into consideration, he's number 1. But again, for the sake of this list, I did put him here number 2. Now, number 1, the number 1 has only played one time, kind of, because again, reindeer games. But at number 1, I do have Josh Martinez. And again, Josh is an incredible character for the show. I know people get annoyed by him. There's people that don't like him. Again, I think Josh is probably one of the most entertaining presences, not even just in Big Brother, probably in all of reality TV. I think you put Josh on any show, he is going to make incredible TV. Every single time. And obviously a very confrontational figure, one that is willing to get into fights with everybody. Again, was another one of these that, again, would pick fights with people to like rattle them in the game. So again, I think with Josh, it became a little bit icky because it just felt like the entire house ganging up on the likes of Justin Cody, especially considering like tactics of using PTSD. But to be fair, again, Josh himself didn't do that, so at least there's something. But again, his like pot and pans, him again getting into fight with Mark, or Mark almost hits him with a pan, is also really funny. I always remembered his like shocked face, his like Paul reveal reveals that he was fake crying, which all that's funny as well. And obviously, I think if we go beyond just Big Brother, I think this solidifies his placement as number one even more, where obviously he's provided incredible moments beyond this on the challenge. But again, purely relegating this to Big Brother, I still think there is still a serious argument he's number one here, especially considering like his overall trajectory in the game. The fact that he goes on to win the game, being as wacky of a character he is also really insane. Again, I think if we're just taking how he is as a character on his individual season that he actually won, probably the character of the butt. Again, I feel like Josh is just like everything you would want in a reality TV character. Again, a really loud, bold personality, one that gets into fights, one that can play the game strategically to where, well, again, I feel like this opinion solidifies even more through things outside of Big Brother. I feel like even within the course of Big Brother, he is an all-time great character, which puts him here at number one. And with that, again, that is my top 10 one-time characters for Big Brother US. Now, again, I will be doing a top 10 characters of all time video down the road that will include all players that have played multiple times. So again, stay tuned for that. Beyond that, obviously, just again, expect more of the same style content for the channel. Again, I will continue to do Survivor Big Brother stuff down the road, still keeping with the typical schedule for the channel. So stay tuned for all those things. But for now, that is the video. Thank you for watching.